Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 370 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is gratitude. Our quote of the day comes to us from Eckhart Tolle. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. As today is Thanksgiving, I would like to wish everyone and their families a safe and happy Thanksgiving. As these last 2 years have been extremely challenging throughout this pandemic, I hope everyone will be able to spend the holiday with family, friends, and their loved ones. I also wanted to personally express my sincere gratitude to you, our amazing listeners. There are so many other podcasts that you could be listening to, and I know that new podcasts almost seem to be launched on a daily basis. And we truly appreciate the fact that you consistently tune into the No Quit Living podcast. It means so much to us, and for that, we are extremely grateful, so thank you. I can't believe it, but we are only 30 episodes away from our 400th episode. When we first launched this podcast, I wasn't sure personally what to expect, but this journey has been incredible. With that in mind, it's very important for me to say a very special thank you to the incredible guests that we have been so fortunate to have join us. To me, the two most important parts of our podcast are the guests as well as our listeners. When I go back and take a look at the journey of this podcast, I've met so many extraordinary people, and many of them I'm so fortunate to be able to call my friends. And some of them I'm also extremely grateful to be able to call good friends. Now, one common theme throughout this show has been the concept of gratitude and the importance it plays on a daily basis with so many of our guests. Whether it is writing down those people or things that you are grateful for on a daily basis in either a journal or a notebook, or verbalizing it to others, gratitude has been a consistent theme throughout our podcast. Right after we launched our podcast, I started a very difficult divorce, and I personally struggled. Honestly, there are still difficult and challenging moments. During that time, I began focusing on the negatives, and I lost my way when it came to gratitude and being grateful. I was definitely looking at my cup as less than half full. I knew it was important to express gratitude, but I wasn't at a place in my life where I was really being intentional with it. I was saying it to others. I was saying thank you. And I told people I was grateful for them, but I wasn't really living it, if that makes sense. When it came to gratitude at that point in my life, I was definitely just going through the motions. And I'm not sure exactly when I first read or was introduced to this amazing quote by Oprah Winfrey, but it really hit me. And today this quote is one of my all-time favorites. Be thankful for what you have. You'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never, ever have enough. Whenever I read or hear that quote today, it reminds me back to that time in my life when I began to lean into gratitude. As I mentioned, it was something I said, but I began making a very conscious effort to both express, but also show my gratitude towards and for others in a very genuine and intentional way. That reminds me of another quote that I've heard many times, and I'm not sure exactly who said it because I've read and I've seen so many different variations of it. But the general theme of the quote is this: you can't be grateful and unhappy at the same time. I love that quote, and I love both its simplicity, but also how deep it is. For me, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I think people often look at positivity and gratitude with this all or nothing, 0 or 100 mentality. Now, what I mean by that is very simple. I find people often say that they have nothing to be grateful for, and they immediately list 2 or 3 things that are not going well in their life. And they go down that 0 or 100 road immediately. But what if instead of only focusing on those challenges in your life, you acknowledge them, but you also acknowledge those good things as well? It's not about putting blinders on and living this fictitious story of everything being rainbows and unicorns. But I think it is incredibly powerful to recognize and acknowledge both the negative and positives in your life. How else would we be able to make those improvements or adjustments while also actively trying to replicate those good things or those positives in our life. The simple point and idea of everything not having to be all or nothing, 0 or 100, really changed things for me. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't mean you don't acknowledge or recognize those challenges or obstacles in your life personally or professionally, but it's the importance of not only focusing on or not only seeing them. Now, I will 1,000% agree that it is much easier said than done, but for me it has been and had a really positive impact on me when I actively focus on and consistently make a conscious effort to look for the good and to be extremely sincere with my gratitude. Now, one thing I'd like to mention, and I heard this from a good friend, we shouldn't only need to be grateful for others. We should also be grateful for the person that we are becoming. It's a good thing to acknowledge our individual accomplishments, but to also highlight those things that we might have, as well as those things that we've earned along the way. To change lanes for a minute, I'd like to share a story. Over the past few months, I've been working with the company and their 3 C-level executives. And during one of our last meetings, I asked those 3 leaders point blank if they showed gratitude for their employees, and they immediately responded that their employees knew they were appreciated and that they were paid well. They made a sincere focus on the fact that they were paid well. And I followed up by asking them, when was the last time you actually told those employees individually that you genuinely appreciate them? And there was a long pause. And what I realized about that is a lot of times we say that person knows that I'm grateful for them, or my kids know, or my wife, or my husband, or my boss, or my friends. My challenge to you is, what about your personal and professional life? Whether it's at work, at home, or maybe within your community. When is the last time you genuinely expressed sincere gratitude to those important people in your life? Now, I'm not talking about a quick little thank you under your breath or a one-line text, thanks. I'm talking about letting that person, that employee, or that family member know that you truly do appreciate them. So as I said, today is Thanksgiving 2022. And my challenge to you is very simple. When this podcast is over, let someone know that they are appreciated and that you are grateful for them. You can either tell them in person or maybe even pick up that phone. But let someone know that you are grateful for them being in your life. We never know what tomorrow will bring or the next day. So why not express your gratitude today? And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.